Hello and welcome to the MTG Bazaar. My name's Ben Tudman and I'm a competitive MTG grinder based in Melbourne and also a member of Team Bustol. I'm going to talk to you in this video about the deck that I top-8'd a regional championship with that for a while after top-8ing I was advocating against anyone picking up, but with the most recent standard overhaul, courtesy of a few bans, I think now might be the time that Jeskai Oculus could come back up as a real metagame player. So why Jeskai Oculus? Well, the deck has demonstrated that it does have serious power, and some of the issues that have revolved around it should be resolving themselves as some cards are removed from the standard pool, as well as we transition into rotation and Edge of Eternity's release, the mana base in particular, one of the biggest issues with the deck historically, is starting to get a little bit better. What the bans mean for a deck like Jeskai Oculus is that a lot of the high proficient cards should be less played moving forward. The standard as a format had evolved into a very 1 and 2 mana centric format, which meant even though your premium combo of Abhorrent Oculus and Helping Hand kind of means the Oculus costs 1 mana, the actual result of this was that the interaction and the speed of the format had pushed it to the fringes, and it stayed there, or one of the reasons I discouraged people playing it was because the mana was kind of shoddy. People really wanted to play 12 fast lands. I think that was a mistake because the deck really wanted to play an untapped land on turn 4, and the addition of shock lands plus verges offers you the opportunity to do that more frequently. Let's get into the deck list. Let's begin by talking about the mana base, where in the past we used a combination of pain lands and fast lands. There was this tension that I mentioned earlier that we can now move away from, as the shock lands coming in Edge of Eternities and beyond will lean in and allow the verges to really unlock. This mana base I present to you here is not cast improved, so don't take it as gospel, but the intent here is that we can start to move towards a mana base that doesn't come in tapped post turn 3, as well as doesn't hurt quite as much as relying on the pain lands for your coloured sources. The creature suite hasn't shifted too much. For Mako, for FOMO, for Steamcore Scholar, for Oculus, and some number of Tersa have been pretty stock in these lists for a while, or at least they should be. What's changed from my RC top-8ing list and to what I've got here today for you is the value of the Guardian was that it could block in a format defined by Monstrous Rage. Without Monstrous Rage, the need for that Guardian of Benalia no longer really exists in the same way. And so we've got 3 cards here. One, Inti, that was always a bit player, very powerful, but sometimes a bit win more. We tested it extensively for that regional championship, moved away from it for the consistency that Guardian of Benalia led us to do in blocking, but certainly could be a real consideration here. The new card from Final Fantasy that I want to test in this slot is Giott, and I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm not a Final Fantasy player, sorry to say. The King of the Dwarves, that bit that I can speak in English. So there's 2 things interesting about this card to me and for this deck. One, Double Strike pairs quite well with Proft's Eidetic Memory and FOMO. So there's this natural, one of the 2 main plans of the deck that it lends itself quite well to. And the second thing that it obviously does is it can discard an Oculus for Helping Hand the turn after to reanimate all that turn if you've got 3 mana already. This is synergistic with both of our primary plans, but I will say the card by itself isn't super exciting. So there is certainly some tension around, is it too low impact by itself versus does it help with the broader game plan of the deck? The reason I'd like to give it a try over something like Joshua as a 3-drop is that it is 2 mana, basically. The deck is really got a lot of very powerful things to do on turn 3, and you do want to be double spelling as early as you can in Modern Standard. So Giott being 2 mana is something that is interesting to me and worth exploring. I think it has real potential. Onto the spell suite, not much has really changed. Spell Pierce is a little bit of a hangover from pre-banning standard. It's entirely possible that with the post-banning and post-rotation world, some variation of this would be appropriate. But for now, I think having a small amount of removal is really appropriate, and Spell Pierce just allows us to protect some of our Kingmaker cards. So the normal curve of turn 2, discard card, Fear FOMO or Giott to put Oculus into graveyard, turn 3, Helping Hand, hold up Spell Pierce to protect it, and once that Oculus is untapped, you've already accrued so much value, it's going to be very hard for your opponent to come back from there. I'll move on to the sideboard considerations in this new post-ban, post-rotation era. A lot of this hasn't changed, but there's a few differences here that I'm advocating for at this point in time, and I'm just going to talk about those. One, Voice of Victory as your anti-control card. Excuse me. This card has proven itself in all formats at this point in time. It's seeing play in Modern. I think the value of it is quite real, and I'm hoping that while it might not be individually synergistic with everything else that's going on with the deck, it is another creature that lets you put Proft's Eidetic Memory counters on it. So you can build it up to protect it from red removal, and the ability for you to safely resolve your Helping Hand or safely resolve your threats, do your FOMO, Proft's shenanigans, what have you, that's really valuable. So I think it's definitely worth a slot. Fire Magic is another one that's new to the deck. This card does some really neat things. I'm expecting that the obvious evolution from the changes to the meta will be around more Dimir mid-range is the obvious one. We'll have a little period of time where Convoke might re-emerge. And in both of these situations, there's a lot of 1-toughness creatures that, yes, there's a bit of tension with the fact that we are also playing creatures, but the ability to scale it to how large we've grown our creatures from profs or which threats we've presented on a given point in time means that we can hopefully leverage Fire Magic as a small, one-sided sweeper to keep these more value-oriented mid-range decks in check, as well as not get overrun by whatever new aggro is emerging in the vacuum that we will surely be seeing. The last card I've got on this list here is Twinmaw Stormbrood. I think this card's really powerful and flexible. Obviously, the creature side is not a competitive constructed rate appropriate, but the 2-mana Omen side of it is really neat. It also synergizes quite well with Winternight Stories in that you can discard it as the creature side, which is obviously always really valuable, and it at 5 damage is enough to deal with some of the threats that this deck struggles with. So why should you choose Jeskai Oculus in this new era of Standard that we're coming to? I think it really comes down to the fact that it has 2 game plans that work on different axes that are both distinctly and uniquely powerful. You can't use exclusively Graveyard Hate to beat the deck because then the Profs and FOMO package will run you over. You can't try to just deal with the creature side of things because Oculus, Helping Hand Oculus creates so much value that 1-for-1 spot removal and even Wraths just don't keep up with it. So this ability to completely attack on multiple axes makes it quite resilient to post-board games. And at the same time, the fact that you've got 3 colors gives you quite a lot of tools. As the metagame evolves, the sideboards will have to change, and that's part and parcel of solving a metagame. But access to white in particular, compared to just like is it build, unlocks a lot of potential ways to leverage the disparate game plans that you have here in different ways. That's everything for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please feel free to ask questions, leave comments, feedbacks, tell me about how your pet card is much better than what I've suggested here in the comments down below. Like, share, subscribe. My name's Ben. Thank you for joining us here, and we will see you next time.